Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Got an update here to a story involving the Institute for Justice. I talked about this case a couple times, but now we have a victory. The federal court has ruled that a New Hampshire town's attempts to force a bakery to take down its donut mural is unconstitutional. Dan King wrote this as a press release from the IJ. U.S. District Court judge ruled that Conway, New Hampshire's attempts to force a local bakery to take down a mural of donut mountains painted by high school art students was unconstitutional and ordered the town to stop any efforts at enforcement. The owner of the bakery risked fines and criminal prosecution if he did not modify the mural or take it down. He and his attorneys from the Institute for Justice tried to reason with Conway, but were forced to file a federal First Amendment lawsuit back in 2023 to protect the man who owns the place and the student's artwork. He said, "I'm thrilled that the student's artwork can remain up. I'm thrilled that my First Amendment rights have been vindicated. And I'm thrilled that the community can continue to enjoy the beautiful piece of art. I think our mural is a wonderful depiction of everything that makes the Mount Washington Valley such a great place to live." The decision follows a one-day trial that was held back in February, during which the judge heard testimony from the owner as well as from the various town zoning officials regarding the town's enforcement of its sign code against this bakery. The Conway's enforcement is unconstitutional as applied to plaintiff's display, the judge wrote. Conway is enjoined from enforcing its ordinance against the bakery in the operationally illogical, textually unsupportable manner it employed in this instance. So, federal judge calls you operationally illogical and textually unsupportable regarding your manners or what you're doing. The town's application of its sign code began soon after high school students from the art class painted the mural above the bakery back in June of 2022. Within a few days, the town's assistant building inspector saw a story about it in the Conway Daily Sun and cited them for violating the town's sign code because, according to town officials, the mural was an illegal sign because it depicted something that the place sells, and that is baked goods. So if it had depicted just mountains, it would have been okay. But depicting mountains and donuts, that's not okay. And there you're talking about the content of speech, which is the issue. So that's when the guy who runs the bakery learned about trying to keep the mural up. He approached the town. He had the backing of many residents, and more than 1,000 people had commented positively on his Facebook page. Scores of letters the editor published in the Conway Daily Sun arguing the mural should stay up, yet the Conway Zoning Board voted unanimously against granting the bakery a variance. They needed a variance to leave up the sign. So then the ZBA doubled it down, denying the variance when the man asked for one. So the Institute for Justice heard about the plight, sent Conway a letter back in December of 2022 urging them to back off and perhaps they should work with the IJ to reform the town's unconstitutional sign code. The town refused and left with no other options. A lawsuit was filed to protect the First Amendment rights of the bakery. The mural has remained up while the suit is pending after a judge granted a temporary restraining order. An attorney for the IJ says towns can certainly regulate signs. They can. They can regulate the size of signs or the number of signs, but what they can't do is pick and choose what signs to regulate based on what they depict, the content. Today's ruling makes it clear that what Conway was doing was discriminating against certain signs based on what officials thought they depicted, and that's a clear First Amendment violation. In the ruling, the judge points out that though the town said it had to regulate the sign to maintain safety and protect the natural beauty of the town allows other murals to stay up unregulated, even though the unregulated murals would have the same impact on the safety and beauty of the town as the mural at the donut shop. In the judge's words, the town's enforcement has no rational connection to any of its stated interests, such as safety and beauty, and is therefore unconstitutional. First of all, the sign's not unsafe. That's ridiculous to say we're talking about safety here. And we're talking about beauty of art. I got news for you. Walk through any museum and discuss how beautiful everything in there is. And arguments will break out. IJ's fight against similar violations of the First Amendment rights of small business owners throughout the country includes a 2020 victory that allowed a North Dakota saloon to keep up its mural, a 2017 win for a Florida video game store that wanted to display an inflatable Mario in front of its store, and a 2013 ruling which permitted a California gym to advertise on a sandwich board out front. So this is a huge, huge story, and it's a big win for the First Amendment, and of course for the guy who runs the bakery that makes the donuts, and of course there's a mural on the store with mountains and donuts, and I don't see what could be wrong with that. But keep in mind, the First Amendment has several sections, but one of the parts talks about your freedom of speech. And there are things that can be regulated, but when you start talking about regulating one of your rights out of the Bill of Rights, the Supreme Court, if it got that far, would look very, very carefully at why it's being regulated, and then is the rule that makes you do something with respect to your speech that regulates you, is it tailored narrowly for a specific purpose? And does that purpose meet the constitutional requirements? And so here they're basically saying, look, if you have a sign, there's one set of rules, and if it's a mural, there's another set of rules, but a mural is defined a certain way and a sign is defined a certain way, and now you go, okay, why is this so important? Safety. Think of the children. Okay, you can't just say the word. Explain to me what's unsafe about that sign. I mean, okay. So beauty. Truth is beauty. Beauty is truth. Seriously, if you're actually going to say that we can regulate signs that are not beautiful, you're going to have an even bigger problem. Because talk about a standard that cannot be enforced. It cannot be enforced. I mean, think of all the times that you discuss anything that is some form of art that's visual, whether you're going to see a movie or seeing paintings in a museum or whatever it might be, clothing on display in windows of stores, and how one person goes, oh, that looks great. Other person, nah, it's horrible, you know. No one can agree on what beauty is. So beauty and safety. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody made a sign that hung out over the road and was too low for trucks to get past, that would be a safety issue, okay? But here, the sign is on a building away from traffic. So that one's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Safety and beauty. So, the judge had already granted the restraining order, and now it's permanent. There you go. So the town has two choices. They can do nothing. They can just literally say, oh, okay, move on. Or they could try to rewrite their code if they think it's salvageable and rewrite it in a way that makes sense. But who knows? But meanwhile, the IJ, it says right here, and I'm just reading what they describe themselves as, public interest law firm that represents clients free of charge in cutting-edge litigation defending vital constitutional rights. You can support them by going to ij.org, and I'll put a link to them in the description below the video, as I always do. And they are a nonprofit, and they survive entirely based on the generosity of people who support their cause. And I've been talking about them for years on my channel. I know some of the people there very, very well. I've actually gone to the Michigan Supreme Court and watched them argue a case. And they do extremely important work. So if you like stories like this and outcomes like this, please check out their work. They do have a YouTube channel. You can check that out. But you go to ij.org, and they have a newsletter. You can subscribe to the newsletter. But just check out the work they do. And even if you can't support them financially, just support them morally. Moral support. Just go and check them out. If they get a lot of traffic on their site, it shows them that people care. And that sometimes can be enough. So there you go. But victory. Federal court rules New Hampshire town's attempt to force bakery to take down its donut mural is unconstitutional. Dan King wrote that. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Progress is man's ability to complicate simplicity.